Bluff City Media presents Tigers Live with Francis Carlota. Join Francis after every Memphis Tiger game as he breaks down each matchup, player of the game, and upcoming games. Now, let's get to the show.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Tigers Live for Bluff City Media. I'm your host of the show, Francis Carlotta, coming at y'all after the Memphis Tigers beat the Wichita State Shockers in the quarterfinals of the AAC conference tournament, 83-80. Let's throw that ticker up there. Oh, my goodness, y'all. Lots and lots of things to discuss about this game. Lots to talk about, and we'll get into it all. I will be joined by Roman Cleary in just a moment. Actually, I see he's in the stage now, so I'll add him to the stream. Then after Roman has to do his duties, we'll be joined by special guest Matt Infield, who will join after Roman has to go do his duties. I see Roman's here, so let me go ahead and add him to the stream. Roman, how you doing?
What's up? What's up, Francis? How are you?
I'm well. How's it like being in the Dickies Arena? I know you're coming at us from there.
Yeah, this is my my second season here now. My second year in a row coming here. It's a very nice place to cover a game for sure. And Fort Worth's a cool place. The media dining here is exquisite. I have to say that as well.
Nice. I expect nothing less. Well, Roman, hey, unlike last year, you get to stay a little longer at the AAC tournament. Yeah, a little longer. Same team, different results. So give me your thoughts on this performance from the Tigers today.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't have had to do a one-day turnaround regardless, because we actually got in last night, which was unlike what we did last time. Because last time, as I think a lot of we drove in at like 4 o'clock in the morning because it was a 1:30 Thursday game, and Memphis went on the lose. So it was pretty rough having to drive back the next day. But that was not going to happen here regardless. But still, I suppose it is, nicer to stay here for a little longer, have a bit more of an enjoyment out of the trip.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to me about the game. Obviously, the last few minutes was a lot tighter than we would have hoped. But, give me your thoughts on the performance as a whole.
Yeah, no, it got real dicey for Memphis for a few minutes there down the stretch. You have to give tons of credit to Wichita. Their season was on the line pretty much. Because their year's over now. They're not going to be making the NIT or anything like that. They've just taken too many bad losses to get there. But this is a really solid Wichita team that I think underperformed its talent for a good portion of the year. It honestly has no business being an 8 seed in this tournament. But, again, they've simply lost too many conference games. So that's really the only reason they were in this position to begin with. So Memphis did have a harder first-round matchup here or second or quarterfinal matchup in the AAC tournament that it probably deserved, to be honest. But, that's neither here nor there. Good job by the Tigers to escape a pretty feisty Wichita team, one of the two teams in the AAC that has, of course, beaten Memphis this season. And I have to say this, that was not goaltending against Quincy Ballard. I didn't think so either. Memphis got really lucky with that call, I think. If that call goes the other way, that would have cut the deficit to a 2-point game, and things could look a lot different if that didn't go Memphis' way. I don't think that was goaltending against Ballard there. I think the officials made the wrong call, and Memphis was very fortunate for it.
Well, I agree. I do think that was not goaltending on Ballard. The weird thing to me about that call was the ref said they confirmed it. So it's not like it's not even the call stood. Normally the call stands.
It was called goaltending on the floor.
No, that's what I'm saying, but they said they confirmed it. They didn't say it stands. So it's like they were like 100% certain that it was goaltending instead of saying, oh, well, it's a call on the floor, so let's just stick with that call. They confirmed it, which it didn't look like goaltending when you looked at the replays. But I will say the refs down the stretch, I thought, seeming like we're doing makeup calls for that missed goaltending, because that looked like a clear hook and hold. That I'm forgetting the Wichita State player who did the hook and hold, but the PJ Hagerty got called for a foul, and it just looked like a clear hook and hold to everybody watching. I'm not sure how that wasn't one. And there were what seemed to me phantom calls at the end, putting Wichita State at the line multiple times. I don't know. I'm not going to gripe. That's not what I'm here to do. But yes, I think they missed the goaltending call, but I also think they missed some calls at the end down the stretch. But with that being said, Roman, Memphis still was in that position because they couldn't execute in the late game. And I know normally we start to like to talk about the beginning and then work our way through the game, but we're already talking about it, so we might as well. It seemed to me that Memphis had control when they were up by 10, and then all of a sudden Wichita State just kept just sticking around and staying around. What did you see from the late game execution from Memphis that led to this game being a lot closer than we would have hoped?
Yeah, well, I think the fast break turnovers helped Memphis a ton early in the second half. Their half court offense was really never there for the entire game. We saw that for much of the first half. Francis, get this in the first half. PJ Hagerty and Dane Danger combined for 31 of Memphis's 39 first half points, and they shot 57% from the field in doing so. The other Tigers shot a combined 13%. So when you're only really relying on two players to score, and that didn't really change much in the second half either. Again, once Wichita really stopped being reckless with the ball and stopped turning it over, I really felt like that put a huge dent in Memphis' offense, because that's how they really got out to that double-digit lead early in the half, is all the fast break opportunities there.
Yeah, I think that's a very good shout. Memphis did a good job of speeding Wichita State up when it was clear from the beginning of the game that Wichita State was going to try and slow the game down, try and dribble out possessions and get shots at the end of their shot clock and really limit possessions for Memphis. And then Memphis really sped them up early on in the second half, which, like you said, led to that double-digit lead. And then once Wichita State started taking care of the ball better, well, things just kind of changed for the half court for Memphis. I want to ask you about the rotations too. Musa was still in the game with those 4 fouls with about 13 minutes left, and he fouls out really early. Do you think that was a wrong decision by Penny to keep Musa in? I don't think Jourdain played a lot of minutes tonight either. What did you feel? How did you feel about that?
Yeah, I saw Timo comment that a second ago as well. That's a good shout. Yeah. It's certainly questionable, but I mean, Jourdain was in foul trouble at that point too. I think he had 3 or 4 by that point. Rogers was in foul trouble for pretty much the entire game as well. You had a few different guys in foul trouble, and at this point, to be honest, I think you'd rather lose Cisse than you'd rather lose Jourdain or Rogers. So again, I'm not really defending the decision, but I can at least sympathize with it a little bit.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I know you mentioned that. Well, you mentioned on Twitter that you saw Dane was on the bench, and they talked about it also on the broadcast. Any early word about Dane's shoulder, or is I think he's okay? Do you have any word on it?
No, I haven't heard anything on it. He played for the entire second half, so I'm just going to assume that there's not much wrong there. I mean, he went to the bench late in the first half with some discomfort. Daryl Turner, the trainer, was looking at him for a bit there as well. So there was clearly something up with the right shoulder, but clearly it wasn't super, I guess, impactful to the point where he had to be withheld from the game for an extended period of time.
Yeah. Okay. Totally fair. Totally fair. Well, Roman, let's talk about PJ Hagerty, man. An absolutely just insane game from PJ. 42 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, 1 block. I mean, come on. He was absolutely incredible. Did anything about PJ's game, what stood out for you from him?
I mean, I think the numbers kind of speak for itself there. I mean, it was just PJ Hagerty at his absolute best, being able to score at all 3 levels. And I mean, actually, I don't think he hit a 3-pointer in this game, but I think you catch my drift here. I mean, he hits good shots from mid range. He attacked the paint very well. I mean, it's pretty much the kind of game we've been seeing from PJ all season. He just did it, perhaps at a higher level than he has throughout the entire year.
Yeah, absolutely. He was just absolutely immaculate. I'm running out of words to use when I describe this guy. We've talked about how.
Yeah, I don't know if there's much like breaking down to do of his performance besides just him, just being the elite scorer that he is. It's pretty much what we've been seeing from him all year there.
Yeah, for sure. It's just who he is. He's a second-team Sporting News All-American for a reason, and he's just this good. He's an incredible player. Obviously, he's had a solid play. 18.
Oh, Francis, your mic is Mike. Fix the mic. No.
No, I'm still crappy. Oh
No,
gosh.
no, you got it now. You got it now.
Okay, cool. I guess around this time, right, we're just conks out. Sorry about that. But yeah, they were saying Dane had a good game as well. 18 points, 5 rebounds, 3 blocks. A good game from Dane, but besides him and Hagerty, it was a pretty. No one else really stepped up. What was it? Just not hitting shots from the Tigers, or was it Wichita State's defense, or what was it for you that was the reason why Memphis didn't get a lot of contribution from the rest of their guys today?
Well, the first half especially, I would really attribute it to Memphis's inability to just generate good looks. They were forcing a lot of shots. They were forcing contested looks at the rim and from three. And Wichita State, just to their credit, they played great defense as well. They didn't really deviate from their plan too much. They didn't really allow themselves to be shaken. They just had a response to everything, and they knew, okay, Hagerty and Danger, there's probably not much we can do about them, but we can take out Tyrese Hunter. We can take care of Colby Rogers. Get this, Francis. Colby Rogers in 3 games against Wichita State this season, 6 points, 3 of 23 shooting.
Yeah.
Or is it 5 or 6 points? I don't quite remember how many points it is, but yeah, 5 or 6 points on 3 of 23 shooting. Today he was 0 of 5 from the field.
I mean, it's not going to get it done, like you said. Colby is an X factor. I've talked about Nick. Nick had like 4 open layups that he just didn't shoot. He just didn't go up. I'm like,
yeah. And Rogers missed an absolute bunny at the beginning of the game.
Yeah,
I remember. And as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, Colby might be in trouble today. As soon as I saw that.
Yeah. We talked about it before. Colby, it's all mental with Colby, and that's not going to do any favors for somebody mentally. when you go up for a dunk, but then you realize you can't make the dunk, and then you just try and lay it up, but it's way too late at that point, and you just blow a wide open look. It's not good for the brain. Now, I agree. I think Wichita State's defense was a big factor here. I thought they played really, really good defensively on the Tigers, and they took everything else away besides PJ just being the dynamic scorer that PJ Hagerty is. I mean, he's got to be your player of the game, right, Roman?
No, it's Musa Cisse. Just kidding. just kidding. No, it's Hagerty, AAC Player of the Year. Contender for National Player of the Year. He has pretty much every accolade you can think of at this point, or he's at least up for it. And he showed why here today. Yes, certainly the player of the game here.
Yeah, it's 100% PJ Hagerty. He was just incredible, absolutely incredible. Do you have again? I get it. First game of the AAC tournament. Memphis was the one with the bye. Wichita State played a game yesterday, so they're in the flow. They also hit a lot of threes in their game against South Florida. They started off hot from deep today against Memphis. They cooled off a little bit, but they still shot the ball from 3 pretty well overall. Do you think it was just a bit of the long rest for Memphis, or what was it for you that kind of allowed Wichita State to really keep a foothold in this game for a long period of time?
I mean, honestly, I don't think it has as much to do with Memphis's rest as opposed to Wichita State just not being a great matchup for this team. I mean, we've just kind of seen throughout this entire season that Memphis has trouble with Wichita State for one reason or another. I have to specifically point to Ronnie DeGray being a fantastic wing defender, being able to close off a lot of the gaps Memphis usually likes to take advantage of from 3. Quincy Ballard is one of the few bigs in the AAC that can realistically match what Memphis's front court brings to the table. Xavier Bell is a really good volume scorer guard. I mean, Wichita just has players that are able to exploit Memphis's weaknesses really well, kind of like Temple does. And when it's not really surprising that Memphis usually finds itself in trouble when it goes up against the Shockers there.
Yeah, I think it was Dane Bradshaw on the broadcast brought up a good point when they were talking about obviously Memphis's metrics, right? That's the buzzword to talk about the Tigers going into NCAA tournament and how that they have underperformed against teams that they should beat by 10 points, 12 points, whatever. and I think it was Dane Bradshaw asked the question: is it Memphis underperforming? Or is it their opponents playing up to the competition, playing up to the fact that it's Memphis, it's the Memphis Tigers? And I think that's a fair point. I think Memphis has gotten the best shot from everybody they played in the AAC. And like you said, Roman, this is just not a great matchup for the Tigers. And you have to give credit to Wichita State for playing hard. Like you said, their season was on the line today. They're not making the NCAA tournament at large at all. This was their only chance of winning the tournament. To make the NCAA tournament was to win the AAC tournament. And I thought they played really hard. They played really well. And down the stretch, Memphis was just able to get it done down in this game. So, Roman, I'll ask you, and it might be an easy answer. Is this game any cause for concern moving forward in the tournament or no?
I don't think so. I mean, it's March. Everyone's season is on the line here. Memphis is still trying to play for better seeding, even though I don't know how realistic that is for them at this point. But regardless, everyone is playing for something right now. You're going to see close games. It's just how it is.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. This is March, y'all. Like, I know a lot of people are going to look at this and try and poke holes at what happened with this game, and obviously with issues down the stretch. This is
PJ Hagerty and Dane Danger and Penny Hardaway are coming in, so I believe I have to depart.
Okay. All right, Roman, go do your thing. I appreciate you always.
All right, thank you.
All right, man. Cool. All right, that's Roman Cleary. As you saw at the beginning, he is at Dickies Arena covering the AAC tournament for Bluff City Media. So he's got to go do his press duties. But that's rest assured, we still got a lot to talk about. I'll be joined by Matt Infield on the other side of this commercial break. So y'all do not want to miss it. Stick around, and we'll see y'all in a moment.
On what planet do you look at a 25-year-old basketball player who resume says two-time All-Star, two-time All-NBA defensive team? He's got that twice. He'll have that twice. He'll make that this year. Two-time Defensive Player of the Year or All-NBA. And that could be all of those. He could be Defensive Player of the Year and All-NBA, right? At what point do you look at a player who that's his resume and question anything about what you're about to pay him, who's 25 and you know he's going to get better on that contract?
Do you know what the narrative about the Memphis Grizzlies would be if they didn't sign Jaren Jackson Jr. to this contract?
We are farm league. That we are
poverty ass franchise.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Then there's going to be all this talks about how can we get Ja out of there? How can we get Jaren out of there? Like,
and also, if they don't offer him the Supermax, when Ja Morant time come up, what he gonna think about?
Yeah, we're looking broke, man. We're looking broke as hell.
Tune in to the Anthony Sane Show Wednesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. weekly on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Is this a moment potentially that could change the mojo of this team?
Could, yes. Could it be? Yes. It's hard to say. With they've had what felt like sparks throughout the season, and they haven't really tended to carry over. But the main thing is, can it spark Ja Morant?
Right.
That's it.
That's the biggest thing.
It's the only thing. It's the only thing this team is missing. For this team to be the best that it can be, you're really just missing a locked in, engaged, full throttle Ja Morant.
The way he can control the basketball and control the game will be how the Grizzlies go. If he can control the ball and he can do it like that on a consistent basis, and just getting into the middle of the defense, that will be where this team succeeds the most. So we'll see.
Tune in to the Grizz 901 postgame show, live after every Grizzlies game on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
All right, y'all, welcome back to Tigers Live. So let me go ahead and add Matt Infield to the stage. Matt, what's going on?
How you doing, man? Good to be on. Appreciate you. How's it going?
It's going well, man. It's great to see you. Always appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy, so I appreciate your time being on the show. I have some big picture things I want to ask you, but before we get to that, I got to talk to you about the last 8 minutes of that basketball game, because Matt, what the hell?
Yeah, I mean, just a terrible close game for the Tigers. I will give Wichita State some credit. They clearly play really hard every single night, but that started to look inauspiciously a lot like the game in Wichita that the Tigers, it wasn't a great game, but they probably had it won in the final minute and then put it on a platter for the Shockers and then won it overtime. So at least it didn't get that far. But like you and Roman hit on, I mean, PJ Hagerty, that dude, what else needs to be said? Conference Player of the Year. I mean, that's, especially given the conference tournament stage, that's got to be one of the great performances in Memphis, program history. 42 points, tied for the most in AAC tournament history, and just how efficient he was. And then on top of that, just all the hustle plays and the defensive stuff. I mean, he was incredible. But yeah, they gotta close games out better than that, because they let, again, with all due respect to Wichita, I know they played really hard, but that game should have been over far earlier than it was. So again, survive in advance. You did your, the buzzword, your computer metrics. You did that. No favors today, unfortunately, but
none.
The disaster of losing on Friday to this team again was avoided. So move on tomorrow and play. You like the matchup, I think, better against whoever's going to be Tulane and FAU. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird to think about that. Wichita State is a harder matchup for Memphis than Tulane or FAU, and it's the truth. Memphis has killed FAU two times in a row this year.
Yep.
They only played Tulane. No, did they play
once? Yeah, that was once. That was Colby Rogers kind of took that game over late.
Right. So that game was a little closer, but I still like the matchup. And Penny versus Ron Hunter is always a lot of fun. Yeah. But it's weird to think that Wichita State is a worse matchup for Memphis, and that's in the quarterfinal. But like you said, just survive in advance, win and move on, turn the page. That's all Memphis can do now, is turn the page and move on to the next game. It's funny because I had two moments where I take my game notes and everything. Two moments where I was like, all right, this game it's done. Like, Memphis is now up 10. This game is over. And then just foul calls and going under ball screens that allowed Bijan Cortez to hit an open three. I'm like, why are we going under ball screens with Bijan Cortez with the ball in his hands? What are we doing? And then all of a sudden it's a 4-point game. And then that goaltending call that got reversed. That got confirmed. That
basket interference call.
That basket interference call, when that got confirmed, and then Tyrese Hunter goes down on the other end and hits a three off of that baseline out of bounds play. With Tyrese Hunter didn't do really anything the entire game. And then he hits that, you're like, all right, Memphis is up 7. All right, let's breathe. And then you just couldn't breathe. It never got better. But I'm with you, Matt. They have to do a better job closing games. What is it for you, Matt, that can help Memphis do a better job closing games?
They need other guys to show up. I mean, I know it's a simple answer, but as great as PJ Hagerty is, you can't count on him scoring 42 every night. And then Dane, I will say Dane did a lot better job against Quincy Ballard tonight than he did in the first matchup. ESPN's box score is down. That's sick. I don't know how many points Dane finished with, but he was much better in this game than he was the last game at Wichita, where he was frankly disastrous because of what Quincy Ballard could do to him defensively. I thought Penny did a good job, that I mentioned on the broadcast, getting him some kind of runway opportunities where instead of just posting you up and saying, hey, go Quincy Ballard, start him out at the free throw line or a little bit further out, let him get a bit of a running start. And Dane is more mobile than Ballard. So if you get him a run start and you let him use his strength a little bit, that plays to his advantage a little bit more. But, I mean, you guys hit on it. I mean, props to Tyrese Hunter for hitting that huge three, because that was enormous. But they need other guys to show up. Hopefully, I mentioned Colby Rogers, if they play Tulane theoretically tomorrow, hopefully Colby can replicate what he did against them last time, or just hopefully he can do anything other than what he's done against Wichita State this year. I don't know what it is. Like, some players perform really well against their old teams. I like Colby a lot. Like, Colby is one of my favorite interviews on team this year. This is nothing personal. Colby has been horrendous against Wichita State in all 3 games that they played this year. It just is what it is. And the numbers, Roman brought up the stats. They're not pretty. So hopefully playing someone other than his former team, he can flush that a little bit. Musa and Nick, I don't need them to score a lot. Probably need a little better performance from both of them. And Musa, you guys were having a discussion, should Penny have taken him out earlier or whatnot. Musa cannot be in a position where he's about to foul out with 12 minutes left in the game regardless, and putting your front court, which is already thin, in that position. So, yeah, if other guys show up, I think they'll be fine. But you can't count on 42 from PJ and then however many from Dane and then nothing from anyone else and expect to win probably even to Sunday and definitely not into next weekend.
Right. No, that's 100%. I could not agree with you more. Dane had 18 points today.
Yeah.
3 blocks, 5 boards for Dane. So, it's a good game. It's not the best Dane Danger game we've ever seen, but it's fine. You'll take 18 points from Dane. But it's the rest of them that was.
I'm just looking. I'm sorry. I was looking at the comments real quick. Back to back, we got one comment that says Ballard is a beast. The next one says Ballard is ass with an exclamation point. He's probably in between. He's a tough matchup for certain bigs, though. Go ahead, Francis. Sorry, I just had to point that out.
No, he is a bit of both. Or he's a beast, and then he can also be ass. Sometimes
he's a physical specimen. He's kind of their version of Musa, maybe with a little better offensive game.
Yeah. Well, look, that highlight of Ballard where he stuffed Musa on that alley-oop.
And on the other end.
And does a put-back dunk from – it looked like he jumped from like just 2 feet inside the free throw line. And
he's a freak for sure.
Incredible. Wichita State's issues with Ballard are probably similar to the issues that we have with CJ. Right. So it's probably, like you said, somewhere in between. No question. No, but you'll take that game from Dane. It was the rest of the team that, like you said, that we've talked about already up to this point. They just have to do a better job on the offensive side and find a way to get involved. Jourdain with 0 points. You got Colby Rogers with 0 points. Tyrese with 8, but you're still hoping for at least double digits from Tyrese.
Yeah.
And also just to see him be more involved and just active on the offensive side. Musa, just 4 points. Those were all from the free throw line, by the way, which is always a plus when you get free throws from Musa Cisse. Yeah. Okogie, a decent Okogie stat line game. 4 points, 2 blocks, 1 steal, 2 assists. The box score for Okogie, that's okay. I was gonna say with Baraka too. That was one of those moments late in the game where they put the ball in his hands off an inbound, and he's shooting the 1-and-1. I'm like, why is it him? Wow. And I'm like, I don't know what his free throw percentage is on the year, but I'm like, I feel like this is a spot where he's gonna miss the front end of the 1-and-1, and that's exactly what happened. Yeah, I'm trying to pull up his free throw percentage for the year. Ooh, it is not good, Matt. 37.5% free throw shooter. I didn't think it was that bad. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know it was that bad either. Petty was playing offense, defense. That felt like one of those spots where it's like you got to get, because it was probably either Baraka or PJ Carter in the game, or I guess Colby as well. I don't know if maybe Petty thought Colby was so out of it mentally that maybe he didn't want to play him there or what. I also felt like, I don't know about you, I felt like they were kind of indecisive at different points offensively. Even Hagerty, there was one sequence in the first half where, as good as Hagerty was, they get an offensive rebound, and PJ's got a wide open floater from 5 feet away from the basket, and he's already cooking at this point. And he passed it to Dane, and Dane had an okay look, but it missed. And I'm like, dude, take the shot. Nick had one where he had a wide open dunk underneath the basket, and he did the Dwayne Wade pump fake over and over again. I'm like, brother, go up with it, man. So yeah, maybe. It should also be mentioned they haven't played in a week, so maybe some rust and some of that stuff maybe knock out of the system, and you'll get rid of that tomorrow. But yeah, I felt like they were a little bit indecisive too. Yeah, that's what I mean by I just want the rest of the team to play decisively, to not be questioning yourselves on the floor, to not be trying to figure out what I should be doing here or should I take this shot. Just play within yourself and play decisively. Be confident of your decisions, and it was clear that a lot of the guys, besides Hagerty, besides Dane, which you don't need to tell PJ and Dane to be decisive. They are 2 of the most decisive players in all of college basketball. But the rest of the guys, yeah, you want them to be decisive. And hell, even that Tyrese Hunter 3, yes, he wasn't playing well for the rest of the game. He let that thing fly, without a thought, no hesitation at all. He just let it fly, and that's a veteran player playing with a clear decision in that moment that I'm just going to let this fly. I'm going to come off of this screen. I'm going to be butt naked, wide open, and I'm going to shoot it. And he made it, and it was a huge 3 in the moment of the game. But that's all I ask for from the role guys. PJ Carter had a solid game, 7 points. He had 2 threes, one really big 3 in the corner.
No hesitation from him either. I mean, that brother has a sniper's mindset because he lets that thing fly without a moment of thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you saw in the first half, he made his first 3 that I think it was the next possession down. He lets that thing fly from what it looked like the logo. Like he just let it go.
He's a great shooter. You'll live with it.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's what I mean. I hope this game was, like you said, a bit of a wake-up call after not playing for a week and getting their mind right for this stretch run. Because like you said, this performance, while it was so amazing from PJ Hagerty, you just can't have this from the rest of your guys and expect to make a really deep run in March. That's not how that works. Last thing about PJ, it made me think about that Kendrick Davis game when he had 33 points in the quarterfinal against UCF 2 years ago.
Yeah, those numbers.
Yep. And it was just that type of electric performance where, the rest of the team may not have had it going, but PJ Hagerty was like, I'm not going to let us lose this game. It was the same thing from Kendrick Davis. He was not going to let him and DeAndre had great.
I was going to say, in that game, the difference was that was Kendrick and DeAndre. I forgot what the point total was, but they scored like 62 points combined or something like that. I mean, that was one of the best performances by a duo, maybe the best in program history. I can't remember all the stats for that night, but I remember watching that game and there were some stats afterwards, and that was ridiculous. So, this was more, again, Dane had a good game, but that was more like a Batman and Robin game from Kendrick and DeAndre 2 years ago, where this was PJ today putting the team on his back, and Dane had a nice game as well. But I had those thoughts throughout the game as well. I was like, this looks a lot like Kendrick from the same day, the quarterfinals of the conference tournament 2 years ago.
Yeah, and I'm sure you saw the Memphis basketball video that was posted it was Kendrick Davis narrating the video. Oh, I got goosebumps, man. That video got me going. That was really cool. That was really cool. So look, let's talk big picture about the Tigers, because Matt, it's been a while since I've talked to you. Last time you were on the show, it was during the Maui Invitational.
Yeah, after Michigan State game. Yep.
Back in November. So it's been a minute. So since the last time we talked, Matt, you tell me, what do you think are or is the biggest area of growth that you've seen from the Tigers from Maui up until now?
I think it's the simple answer, but just the emergence of Dane Danger and how that changes everything for this team. Because I think from the moment he got inserted into the starting lineup at the first UAB game at the end of January, I mean, he's clearly been, I would say their second best player, but it's close between him and Hagerty. I've made the comment that I think that if Dane was inserted into the starting lineup earlier, it would have been a real kind of neck-and-neck race between him and Hagerty for Conference Player of the Year, which is a compliment to how well Dane has played than a slight at Hagerty. It's funny, Penny joked on the TV show with us that the only person that could stop Dane was him because he had him coming off the bench. But clearly, I mean, that has just added an entirely different dimension to this team, because when you have a big that can score at will like this, and there are not many big men in this league, or probably the country, that can guard him straight up, like we talked about, Wichita State today has one of the few, especially in this conference. But, I mean, if you play him straight up, he's going to give you buckets. And not only is he going to give you buckets, the moment you start throwing extra bodies at him or shading his way, he is a prolific, for a big man, he is a prolific passer. And now he's kicking it out to Hagerty. He's kicking it out to Hunter. If the other role guys on the perimeter show up, he's kicking it out to them as well. So I think just having an offensive threat down there, a true threat to give you efficient buckets at any point in the low post, is a complete game changer for this team. It's kind of, and it's different even than kind of what DeAndre Williams brought a couple years ago, because DeAndre could give you buckets down low, but I thought of Dre more as like a slashing. Calling Dre a stretch four was probably not the accurate term, but he could play on the perimeter a little bit.
DeAndre can hit threes too.
Right. Once in a while, yeah. DeAndre's probably like a 30% three-point shooter from what I remember. So it wasn't great, but there was at least the thought in your mind, okay, maybe he'll shoot it from out there. But DeAndre's more of the slasher, athletic big. Where Dane, you can kind of just camp him down there and let him either go one-on-one and get you points, or he could survey the floor, and he's shown that he is a really good passer for someone his size. So, yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing, and it's the simple, obvious answer, but that's the biggest thing that comes to mind for me.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good shout. It was the catalyst and change of the season that really sent Memphis in the trajectory that they're on now. Yep. A simple one that we've been calling for a while, even before it happened, but as soon as he got entered into the starting lineup, it really just opened things up for the Memphis Tigers this year. And we all know this. He's just an absolute monster. I've said the same thing too, Matt, on this show, that you could make the argument. I'm not saying that you would win the argument, but you could make the argument that Dane Dange is the most important player for the Memphis Tigers. It's still PJ Hagerty. PJ is the most important player. He's got to keep you going. It's PJ's the second team All-American for a reason, but Dane has been so impactful. He's been so damn good. There were games where PJ, he wouldn't have it, especially in that stretch, like midway through, like second, third of the regular season, where there were a couple of games where PJ wasn't getting to the line. He wasn't that efficient either. You look at the game at Wichita State where PJ had not a good game in that one. Neither did Dane, but PJ had a stretch where he wasn't the uber efficient player that we've come accustomed to. And Dane was the one really carrying the load for the Tigers. And so you could argue that Dane has been the best player, most impactful player for the Tigers. You're not going to win the argument, but Dane is just that good of a player. And so, no, I think that's a very good shout. My response to that question is kind of boring, because it's hard for me to state that Memphis has made vast improvements since Maui, because I just think they've always been a really good team. And you saw that in Maui, where they made the finals. They beat UConn, they beat Michigan State, and they lost to Auburn, but it's freaking Auburn. Yeah. And I just think Memphis throughout the year has just continued to show the country that they're just a really good team. Yeah, they're not perfect. They don't have the roster of like the 2008 Memphis Tigers team that made the national championship game. And I'm not going to expect Memphis to be a 1 seed or a 2 seed and be a heavy favorite to make the Final Four. I'm not expecting that at all. They still have flaws, but they're still a good team that has legitimate aspirations of a Sweet 16 Elite 8 run. This is a good basketball team. So my answer to that question is actually kind of boring. I don't think they've made vast improvements or gotten so much better since the Maui Invitational. I just think they've been a good team the whole year. They proved it in the non-conference, and they proved it in the conference as well by winning the regular season title and hopefully making a run to win the AAC tournament as well. So what do you think about that? Is that kind of fair?
No, it's fair. I think the other thing that maybe I would point to is I think that this team is a little bit deeper than we anticipated maybe in Maui, because PJ Carter has had stretches this season where he has played really well. Kind of sucks that you lost Dante Harris, probably, I imagine, he's definitely – they're not officially saying it, but they're talking about the broadcast today. It's like, I'm not sure if we're going to see him the rest of the weekend. And in the camera behind the shot, you can literally see him still in the boot. That was a nasty ankle sprain that happened a week and a half ago. I'm not a doctor. I would be surprised if we saw Dante next weekend at all. Like, I imagine the earliest he gets back would be a theoretical Sweet 16 Elite 8 weekend. But, he was someone that for different stretch at a time could kind of push the pace and be really disruptive defensively. So that was someone as well. And even it's small. I was kind of questioning if we were going to see him today. Dink. Now, listen, I'm not saying I need 15 to 20 Dink minutes a game, but I think that he's proven capable of when I thought he was going to play today maybe when Musa fouled out and Nick is on the bench with 3 fouls with like 12 minutes left. I'm like, does he try to steal a couple of minutes with Dink here? Apparently the answer is no. So maybe that shows that he's not going to play in these games, but at least having another body that you could play as like a small ball 4, because that's something, obviously, a question we had from the moment Tyreek Smith left the program on the first day of the season is, are they deep enough in the front court? The answer still might be no, but to me, at least now they have another guy that you could steal a couple minutes at a time with when your bigs are in foul trouble. But again, these guys got to stay out of foul trouble. Like, we can't have Musa fouling out with 12 minutes left in the game.
No, absolutely. I agree. I said before that Dink has a good shout to be the man to replace Nick if he gets early fouls.
Yeah.
Instead of doing the Cisse, Dane, 2 big lineup, where I understand what Penny and the staff is trying to do with the double big lineup. I get it. And maybe it's also matchup dependent as well, but I would rather see Dink be the first guy off the bench instead of Cisse if it's Jordan with foul trouble. If it's Danger with foul trouble, then sure, bring on Cisse, bring on a big to big switch. That's easy. But I think Dink has the body type and the athleticism to guard opposing teams' 4s at a solid level. Level. He's a big guy. I know they list him at 6'5" on the website, the Tigers website.
He's like well built.
He's built, and he looks bigger than 6'5". Just like looking at him playing basketball. I know obviously you've seen him in person. Kenny's seen him in person many times, and Kenny said on the show that he ain't no 6'5". Like he's bigger than that. And so I think Dink deserves minutes. I've said it before, and I'm with you, Matt. So we'll see if he does get some play moving forward. But no, I think that's a good shout though about Memphis.
I was going to say too, real quick on the double big lineups. So I thought today in the first half, especially the Dane Musa lineups were good. Where you lose me with this team, where they've lost me all season, is I don't need any minutes of Dane, Musa, and Nick all on the floor at the same time. Like, you lose me there. There's not enough. Yeah. There's not enough offensive firepower. There's not enough ball handling. Like, no, it's a clunky fit. So I don't need to see any more of that.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I'm 100% with you. Spacing will be the most important thing with a double big lineup. And if you have Jordan, I think Memphis did a lineup in 2 or 3 games ago, and I talked about it on the show. It was Jordan, Cisse, Danger, Okogie, and Dante Harris. I'm like, what am I looking at?
In the trash. All due respect to those guys individually, throw that lineup in the trash and never get it back.
Yeah, and I think they turned the ball over twice, and then Penny changed it. Like, I'm like, there's no spacing. There's nothing. There's nowhere to go.
I think Penny spent a lot of the regular season like tinkering with lineups. Like, okay, like, is this going to work? Is it not? Like, okay, fine. In the regular season, you could do it, but this time of year, no more time for that.
Yeah. No, absolutely, I'm with you. Well, talking about Penny, he's AAC Coach of the Year. I think for me, as someone who's been a Tigers fan my whole life, I've watched Penny since the moment he got hired as coach of the Memphis Tigers. I'm aware of his strife as a basketball coach and his issues as a coach. For me, I think this is the most impressive job that Penny's ever done by coaching the Memphis Tigers. With this amount of talent, with the roster turnover, with the staff turnover, I think he's been absolutely incredible this season. Hence the AAC Coach of the Year award. And he probably won't win the Coach of the Year for college basketball, but he was on the watch list, top 15, one of the 15 best coaches in the country. So Matt, tell from your eyes, what do you think? And you mentioned the Penny Hardaway show you do on a weekly basis. So you talk to Penny all the time. What to you is the biggest difference from Penny Hardaway this season compared to not just last season, but just in the past in general?
It's a lot. I think that he's been on record as saying, like, when he started, he thought it would be easy because he knew the game. And then I think last year it really came to a head where he realized knowing the game at that level isn't enough. And you've got to be the CEO, essentially, of the entire program. And if you're going to be a great CEO, you have to put people around you that believe in the vision, where everyone is pulling the same direction. And you've got to have guys that are made up of the right stuff mentally. And that goes for coaches, but especially players as well. I think that you see with coaches all the time, but especially guys that played the game at the level he did, like they think everyone should see the game like they do. It's funny. Petty is not like this, but like if you ever watch Inside the NBA and like Shaq is always talking about this big man. Oh, I need 30 and 20 from him in the playoffs. It's like, bro, you were a top 5 player of all time. Like this guy might be an all-star, but he's not you. Like you can't put these expectations on this guy. I think for a coach like Penny, it probably took a while for him to get like, why doesn't this guy see the game like I do? But that's part of kind of growing and adapting to your players and your personnel. I think that last year was obviously a real slice of humble pie for him. But I think that the biggest thing that he learned last year into this year was you got to have the high-end talent, but you also got to have guys that understand and play their roles and don't care about being the man. You got to have a couple guys that can be the man, and they do. They've got PJ Hagerty. They've got Dane Danger, which I don't know if Penny expected him to be this. You've got Tyrese Hunter, who's someone who could be the man. But I just feel like the roles on this team are really well-defined in a way that last year's team wasn't, because Penny has made it known. Last year, essentially, he tried assembling an all-star team just based off pure talent, but there's only one ball, and when you try to assemble an all-star team of 9 to 10 guys, it's probably not going to work, especially when it's pretty well known at this point. Some of those guys were not the most coachable players in the world. A lot of them mentally were very difficult around teammates and staff. So it is what it is. Like, Penny learned from that experience, and he said it after they won the AAC last week. I recruited character first, talent second, and it shows. I've covered this team for 3 seasons. This is easily the best vibes I've had around one of his teams. And a couple of years ago, like the 22-23 team, and the vibes were pretty good, but like the vibes on that team, I felt like were good at the top end of the roster. Kendrick, DeAndre, Alo, guys like that. But like the relationships that I see on this team with guys from PJ Hagerty down to Jared Harris, who is a true freshman who isn't playing a ton right now. Like these guys really like each other and really enjoy being around one another. And that's big, especially if you're going to go through a season like this. So I think he did a great job going after guys that are made up of the right mental makeup, that were going to understand their roles and stick together as well. And also I think, the coaching staff part of it, I think it was a tough pill to swallow. And I asked him about this on the last show that we taped. He had to let go of a lot of guys that he still is good friends with. You think about Faraji Phillips and Jamie Rosser and whatnot. But I think that, if we're just calling a spade, I think he realized that if he was going to take this next step, he needed a little bit of a better staff around him. And I know for a fact as well that this is the most cohesive coaching staff that he's had, and the best chemistry amongst the staff that he's had as well. And I think that someone that's really big in that is Mike Davis, because Penny has made it known that he's had other head coaches as assistants before. Larry freaking Brown, obviously, Frank Haith, Rick Stansberry. And I think that an issue with some of those guys, and that's not to say that it brought the whole house of cards down, but when you're a former head coach that has accomplished things, Larry Brown's resume obviously speaks for itself. Rick Stansberry, even if it's not as recent, was successful in the SEC. These guys want to have their fingerprints on the program as well and imprint some of their vision on the team. When in reality, there's one boss, and you can have conversations and give your input, but if that input is rejected, you've got to be able to live with that. And Mike Davis from day one this year has come in and said, listen, this is Penny's team. I'm just here to help communicate the vision. So I think he's been big. Nolan Smith is obviously an incredibly bright, younger mind, someone that can connect to the players as well. And Petty is probably one of the coolest, I imagine, coaches in the country with his player. I mean, Petty's man. I enjoyed talking with Petty. Petty's a really cool guy. Really nice guy, too. So I'm very happy for his success this year. But, yeah, I think the coaching staff is really cohesive. And I think the last thing I'll say is that Penny has made it known he's still a player's coach, but now he's a player's coach that is willing to be a little bit hold his players more accountable than maybe he was in the past. Because clearly that's something that he brought up last year. Like, he let things slide and slide and slide, and all of a sudden little things become big things, and then the whole thing just falls apart. So, yeah, I mean, just the redemption story really from the embarrassing finish to this exact team that they played today last year in the conference tournament, and he was never on the hot seat. Anyone that said he was on the hot seat, frankly, doesn't know what they're talking about. But, you know, it's certainly – there were a lot of questions around the program coming out of last season and going into September when he fired the whole coaching staff and brought in a whole new staff. But we all said if they win, nobody's going to give a crap. And they won. And his decision-making and his growth is a big part of that. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I think that's very well said, Matt. Just to add on to it, I think he's just matured as just a head coach in college basketball. You know, like you said, he came into this job thinking that he's going to bulldoze the country. He's just naturally, he knows the game of basketball so well. He can recruit 5 stars off of just an apple picking tree and just plop him into the team. And then I'm going to use my insane amount of basketball knowledge, get the best talent, and we're just going to win national championships. It's going to be easy. As you said, he's been very adamant that was the wrong mentality. He's owned up to it. He's changed his mentality and how he builds rosters. And I think last season, as Penny said in his press conference, it kind of needed to happen for Penny to become the coach that he is now. I think his in-game decisions have also been much better. His rotations have been better. He's not perfect with things as we saw today, but I think as a whole, this season, I think he's done a great job managing his rotations, managing lineups. I think he's done a really good job with that. And then, like you said, getting players who are coachable and willing to listen and buy into their role. That is by far the most important thing to building a team, not just in basketball, but in every team sport. That is the most important thing. Finding guys who are willing to listen to their coaches and not just listen, because that's only half of it. It's then incorporating that feedback and making those changes. And that's that other 50% that not a lot of people have in not just basketball, but in life, period. Yeah. And so I'm glad that Penny has made a conscious effort when building this roster to find guys who are very coachable and willing to buy into their role. I think he's just done a great job, man. He's just done a really good job this year. I think you hit the nail on the head with the points about the staff as well. Like you said, he made it was a hard decision. Like, he let go of friends, like you said, and he's got a really good staff of guys who support Penny as the head coach and who also know their stuff too, who are in great basketball minds in their own rights as well. So yeah, I'm so happy to see Penny in this also more healthy state of mind. You know, he's also said before that he had to deal with a lot of stuff with his personal life, with his mom. And I think now this is the happiest that we've seen Penny Hardaway as the head coach of the Memphis Tigers. And it's showing. And so I really hope that it keeps going, and we'll see what happens the rest of the year. Still a lot of basketball left. Speaking of moving forward, who is your X factor for the Tigers as we move throughout the AAC tournament and also going into the NCAA tournament?
I shouted it from the rooftops all year. It doesn't sound great today after the performance he had in this game, but it is Colby Rogers for me because, listen, when he is on, and it's inconsistent for sure, but when he is on, you could start to dream about, okay, Final Four, national championship game appearances. I don't know where he's at mentally right now. Maybe he'll brush his game off today and come out flame-throwing tomorrow or on Sunday if they get to the championship game. But to me, we know what we're getting from PJ Hagerty most nights. And it's something you brought up before about PJ and when he went through that little lull where maybe he wasn't as efficient. To me, I think the great thing that we saw today that we didn't see in that stretch was he played a full 40 minutes of dominant basketball. Because to me, I remember thinking a lot of those games in kind of like the heart of conference play, you would get off the slow starts and then you would turn on the second half. You're like, all right, man, if we could get this for 40 minutes, then this team's cooking. We got it for 40 minutes today. It's just that no one else except for Dane basically showed up.
He was the only chef. The two chefs weren't there.
It was two cooks. Yeah, it was two cooks in the kitchen today.
Yeah.
But if you can get that or something close to that, because you're not going to get that every game, but if you can get something close to that and Dane and then someone like Colby Rogers, then this team goes, as far as their ceiling goes, it goes to another stratosphere. So, and, we've seen Colby like in games again. I'm trying to think the Clemson game. I think the Ole Miss game. I mean, that's a road win against a really good Clemson team, and they beat the brakes off a high-quality Ole Miss team here at FedEx Forum, and those were two games where Colby Rogers showed up and played really well. And like I said before, kind of dug them out of – I think they were up in that Tulane game, but he kind of sealed it for them. But, yes, point being, if he's on, they go to another galaxy as far as their ceiling. If he plays like he did today, then someone else has to step up.
Yeah, no, 100%. Absolutely. That's also Roman's X factor as well. So yeah, I think
Penny's as well. I mean, Penny has said as much on the show. So yeah, I that feels like the consensus. Like to me, it's either got to be Colby or PJ Carter, and Colby right now is getting the opportunity ahead of PJ. And like I said, I think Colby is a better player in a vacuum than PJ, but you got to get it from one of them, and hopefully it's Colby.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm fully with you. I've said mine X factor many times. It's still Nick Jourdain for me, just because you need someone to do all of the dirty work that the rest of the team they're not gonna have to do. They're too undersized or their roles are something else. Nick Jourdain's role is doing literally all of the things that other players don't want to do, and that's what he has to do. He's got to be on the boards. He's got to defend. He's got to be confident with his shot. Be decisive when he gets into the paint. Play off of 2 feet. Go up strong. He doesn't go up strong. He's just so afraid of getting the ball blocked. And it's unfortunate because, dude, you're 6'7", athletic, can dunk on dudes. Go up. Like, just believe in yourself that you can go up and finish. And it's just when you see a decisive Nick Jourdain, he also elevates the Tigers to a whole different ceiling. I think, Matt, this is a hedgy, boring answer. But if the Tigers are going to make a run in March, they need everybody. They need everybody. Like PJ's got to be PJ. Dane's got to be Dane. And you got to get really good performances from everybody else. I do want to bring this up. Sean Day said on his X factor is Tyrese Hunter.
Yeah.
With Tyrese, I talked about this before. He had great games in Maui, where he was electric, unconscious, hitting threes, taking deuce off the dribble, and being. It looked like him and PJ could be an insane two-headed guard monster for the rest of the season. But that's just not his role. That's not what you need from Tyrese Hunter. You don't need him to score 25 points. Don't even need him to score 20. You kind of just need 12 from Tyrese on efficient shooting and just limit turnovers and take care of the basketball, get other people involved. And so I also want Tyrese to be decisive and play confidently within himself as well and be a good leader for this team. But yeah, man, they all need to play well. Like, again, this team is not the talent of that 08 team that made the championship game. They're not even the talent of the team that had Tyreek Evans. Like that, they're not chock full of talent like that. They need all players need to contribute for Memphis to make a deep run. So that just kind of is where they're at. This is the level of roster that they have. They're a good team, though. Again, they are a good team that has real shouts of making a Sweet 16, maybe even an Elite 8 if they get a good matchup. So looking forward to the NCAA tournament, Matt. Then we'll get out of here. The discussions about seed line, I know, is the hot topic regarding Memphis basketball. So I'll ask you, well, it's a two-part question. Where do you think Memphis will be seeded come Selection Sunday? And then also, where do you think they should be seeded come Selection Sunday?
So a lot of it obviously hedges on what happens over the next 48 hours. Again,
let's assume they win the AAC tournament. Let's just assume they win the whole tournament.
I will say that the bracketologists or whoever makes the brackets, the committee, will come to their senses a little bit if they win the conference tournament and say they'll put them at 7. I know the 8 game is the doomsday scenario because obviously you get a 1. Your reward for winning the first game is you get a 1 seed. And obviously the 1 seeds this year, the theoretical 1 seeds, look really, really good and kind of like a tier above the rest of the field. I'll say a 7. Where do I think? I mean, I've said, listen, I know the AP poll. I got into this on Twitter the other day with a couple people. I know the AP poll doesn't have any bearing on the seeding and where teams fall in the brackets. But if they win the conference tournament this weekend, on Monday in that AP poll, they'll probably be between the 12th and 14th team in the country. Let's just say somewhere in that range. So in theory, do the math. You're between 12 and 14. You should either be a back end 3 or a high end 4 seed. Okay. Right. The conference sucks. Their predicted metrics aren't great. Whatever. That's fine. You can penalize them for all that. Make them a 5. Like, to me, anything lower than a 5, and I get they have 3 bad losses on their resume, but I've said this multiple times. The 3 bad losses are Arkansas State at home. Objectively, you can't really defend that at this point, and especially after Arkansas State didn't come out of the Sun Belt
when they're you
can't really defend that at this point. It is what it is. But Temple and Wichita, to me, I just think we have to look at it beyond, oh, that's a quad 3 loss, or what did this do to the net, or their Bart Torvik rate. And again, I've said it. I'm a big analytics guy. I use analytics in almost my analysis of basically every sport that I cover, enjoy. This is not an anti-analytics rant whatsoever. But when you're looking at their losses to Temple and Wichita State in conference play, I think we need to look at it from a human lens of conference play, no matter what conference you're in, is a totally different ballgame in terms of familiarity, the scout, how important it is to those teams. I just think that we need to view it through a little bit of a different microscope than just saying, oh, it's a quad 3 loss, and therefore they cannot be a top 5 seed. And again, I've said this too. I would have no problem penalizing them severely for losing to Temple and Wichita State if they lost to them at home. They lost to them on the road, and especially, I know the Roundhouse isn't the environment it was in the heydays of Fred VanVleet and Ron Baker and Cleanthony Early and all that. That is still, I think most people would say, pretty easily outside of FedEx Forum, the toughest place to play in the conference. So, and again, it goes back to something else that they brought up on the broadcast today, something we've talked about a bunch of times. The margin of victory, to me, doesn't always capture the essence of the game in terms of what the story of the game really was. I brought this up multiple times. They beat Charlotte by 9. They were up by 19 with 4 minutes left in that game, in complete control. But because in garbage time, the 49ers cut it down to a 9-point margin, all of a sudden that hurts them in all these predictive metrics and whatnot. So again, I understand that the predictive stuff and KenPom and Bart Torvik and the net and all that, it has to play a role. I think that it has become, the pendulum has swung a little bit too far in that direction. And to me, when you're looking at those 3 losses and the way that it is apparently anchoring down their seeding, to me, to completely ignore the work, not completely ignore, but to have that overshadow the work they've done at the high end of their schedule in the non-conference and their quad 1 and quad 2 record, and the fact that they went 16-2 in the regular season in conference play. If you add a conference tournament championship on top of that, to me, it would be ridiculous to see them lower than a 5, but I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, very well said. I can't, not much for me to counter or argue. I'm 100% with you. If you look, if the NCAA tournament seeding were fully based on the net, Memphis is 48th in the net right now.
Yeah.
I just pulled it up. And
the net, Bart Torvik, and KenPom all have Memphis outside the top 45 in the country, which if you think they're outside the top 45 in the country in anything, God bless.
Yeah, for real. Like, if that's really where you think Memphis is in terms of talent and what they've accomplished, then they're on the bubble. They might be like a first 4 out or last 4 in type team. But they're not. They're probably, if they win the AAC tournament, like you said, they'll probably be a top 15 AP poll team in the country. And there's just no real middle ground between these things. And I'm fully with you. The pendulum has swung too far. And I've said this before, where Memphis gets seeded come Selection Sunday will be a genuine case study that we'll use as precedent moving forward for how mid-major teams like Memphis with similar resumes where they likely will be seated moving forward.
Yeah.
Because if Memphis gets a top 5 seed, then everyone's now going to say, well, all right, the net didn't matter nearly as much. Just look at their clear resume. Their strength of resume is really good. It's an elite strength of resume, and that's what the NCAA tournament committee relied on, and that's what's probably going to happen moving forward for teams like Memphis. On the flip side, if Memphis gets an 8 seed with this resume, with their quad 1 wins, with what they did out of conference, and if they genuinely got penalized for playing in the AAC, and that's what it is. That's just it. They would be penalized for playing in their conference. They'd be penalized for it, which they have no control. Well, I don't want to get that far, but they don't have control over what conference they play.
It's complicated control.
Correct. It's complicated control. Thank you. And if that's the case, then holy crap, like that's going to set a really bad precedent for Memphis, for other mid-majors moving forward. And they're going to ask themselves, well, what are we supposed to do?
Right.
What are we supposed to do? Memphis did what they were supposed to do by scheduling out of conference the second hardest or first hardest non-conference schedule in the country. That's what they were supposed to do, knowing the AAC isn't good. And then Memphis had a great record in the out of conference. They have, I think, 7 quad. I can just look at it. How many quad 1?
I think they went. Was it 11-2 in quad 1 and 2?
Correct. 6 quad 1 wins, 5 wins in the quad 2. Like you said, 11-2 in those combined quadrants. Memphis did what they're supposed to do, and if they still get penalized for playing the AAC, then that's going to be an awful precedent that will be set for Memphis, for Gonzaga, for St. Mary's, for whatever moving forward. So it'll be interesting. I think what will happen is probably the middle ground of those two polar opposite scenarios, where, like you said, Memphis probably gets a 7. I think a 6 is very possible. If they win the conference tournament, in my mind, Matt, I think they get a 6 seed. That's just how I feel. I've said I'm not a bracketologist. I'm not.
I think it's within the realm. Yeah.
Feeling. Yeah, I think that's what they get. But look, and you touched about the conference stuff too. I want to do a soccer analogy where you hear teams in the Premier League. Well, us players or teams in the Premier League, can they do it on a rainy night in Stoke? Is the famous saying about the Premier League. Well, this guy's really good in Spain, like Messi, for example. What if he moved to the Premier League? Can he do it on a rainy night in Stoke? It's like, because you see teams like Man City, Liverpool play teams like Ipswich Town and Southampton and awful teams in the Prem, and they lose. Yeah. They lose to these teams because there's our teams full of professionals who are going to play hard, and it's on their home turf with their own fans. Those upsets happen every weekend in the Premier League,
right?
Because you get the best shot from these lower tier teams playing against the big dogs, and it's the same thing with Memphis.
And I think that's where the
lower tier teams.
I think that's where the bracketologists and people that, if you're only looking at the raw numbers, you ignore again the human aspect of, if you're Memphis, you're getting everyone's best shot. You are Petty says it all the time, and he's not wrong. You are everyone's Super Bowl. And yet you are also Memphis, and you are going through this conference schedule where I get it. Like, it's easy to say you got to be up for everyone no matter what. And this team, for the most part this year, was, and they did a good job of that. But also, when you know you are, frankly, significantly better than everyone else in the league, over 18 games to expect perfection, it's unrealistic to me. So here's the thing. What is the path to a top 4, top 5 seed? You had this awesome non-conference schedule. You lose 2 games in conference, and they're talking about you as a potential 7 or 8. So what's the alternative? If you schedule a cupcake non-conference schedule and go perfect in it, they're not going to respect it. They're going to view it the same way they view your conference schedule. And to be honest, the only solution, the only way out is, other than leaving the conference, which, again, different discussion for many different days down the road. The only other way is for, and I think Ed Scott mentioned it on Penny's radio show this week, the other teams in the conference, they got scheduled better, and they have to boost their own resumes so that, like, think about this, like how silly this is. Again, I know the Wichita State loss in the regular season wasn't great, even though, again, it was on the road in a conference game where they're up and all that. But Memphis was then dragged down by them because they lost to Tulsa on the last day of the regular season. So to avoid that in the future, the rest of the conference has to schedule better. Will they? A couple of them might. I don't know if they all will, but that's the only way out.
No, I'm fully with you. The other team in the conference that has my 1,000% respect is North Texas, and I'm just looking at their out-of-conference schedule. They have a win at Minnesota, one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. They played Utah State. And they lost to them by 4. Utah State's had a solid year in the Mountain West, but they beat Oregon State. That's a team but like
this is North Texas, correct?
Yeah, say that again. Sorry.
You said this is North Texas, right?
Yeah, North Texas is out of conference. Yeah, and it's just I think North Texas is a good team, like a team that if they were to bid steal, then it wouldn't shock me that much. They're a good team. And if they like you said, scheduled better out of conference and had more chances to prove that, I think they would have, because they have the talent. They play such good defense, and they're really well coached, and they can hit enough shots to win these type of games. But it does Memphis no favors to be in this conference, to play the level of opponents that they've played. It does them no favors. And so like we just talked about, what are they supposed to do except what they've already done up to this point? And so let's see, man. Like I see also people in the comments saying, I don't care about the seeding, just go win. I'm with you. Like, just go win games. I know the 8-9 is going to suck, but if that's the case, if Memphis is somehow by some absolute awful decision by the committee in the 8-9 game, screw it, man. Just go play basketball. Like, that's all you can do at that point. Like,
I think, like we just hit on before, the only thing with the 8-9, playing that game in particular this year, it's like we talked about. Now, obviously, this Cooper Flag injury could change things a little bit for Duke, but in theory, I think we think the top 4 teams in the country are those theoretical 4-1 seeds. There's a little bit of a gap after that. So that's the only thing I'll say. But again, this team has shown they can play with just about anyone in the country. The only team that they looked, save for the Mississippi State game, random bad game. But other than that, like, the other team of that caliber, you lost to the number 1 overall team the entire year in a game, the entire season in a game where you spotted them 9 points right off the bat. So yeah, ball up top.
Ball up top. That's right, Matt. Well, look, man, I really, really appreciate your time and for you coming on Tigers Live and talking about Tiger basketball with me. Matt, let everyone know where they can find you, man.
Yeah, so if you are in Memphis or a bit south, catch me on Action News 5 anchoring sports. Saturdays at 6 and 10, Sundays at 5 and 10. We've got big stuff for Tony Allen's jersey retirement at FedEx Forum tomorrow night, because you can watch the game for free on Action News 5. Other than that, I'm very active on Twitter. You can follow me at Matt_Infield for all of my takes and news. Some of the takes are good, some of them are bad. All the news is straightforward though. And yeah, man, that's basically it. I appreciate having me on. It's always fun being on with you guys, and hopefully we get to do it again after a deep Tigers March Madness run.
Oh, man. Now, nothing would make me happier, man. Nothing would make me happier. Hey, and we'll forgive you for being a Jets fan too. At least you got you got Justin Fields, right? That's a good thing, right? Is that a good thing for you?
I kind of sneakily think if maybe this is me having any sort of optimism around the Jets anymore after what they've done to me for 20 years is maybe a little bit delusional on my part. I will sneakily say, I think if the coaching staff is competent, which I'm not getting excited over coaching hires anymore. I like Aaron Glenn. We'll see. I've seen too many Jets coaches come in that I liked, and it didn't work out. If the coaching staff is competent, I think that you could probably design an offense built around Fields' legs and the run game where you could probably win 8, maybe 9 games next year. But to me, obviously, this year with the Rodgers dead cap situation, it's kind of about setting the culture, resetting the books a little bit, build through the draft, and go from there. They still have a lot of really good young players on the team. I'll say that. Garrett, Wilson, Brees, Hall, Jermaine Johnson, Sauce Gardner, like, they're not totally bereft of talent, but they need a culture reset very badly. So hopefully Aaron Glenn can provide that.
Hey, what did Aaron Glenn say? Y'all are the New York effing Jets. Like, isn't that what he said in the press conference?
You know what? I will say, man, he was part of a turnaround with the Jets as a player, and he was part of a turnaround. I mean, listen, I know we've all got short-term memories now. The Lions were a joke for so long, and now they're one of the best organizations in the sport. So he has seen it up close and personal as a player and as a coach. So it gives me a little bit of optimism, but we'll see.
Absolutely, man. Hey, I'm happy you're optimistic. You know, I don't really have
Barely,
a dog
yeah.
in the NFL. Barely. I don't have a dog in the NFL fight. I just love sports. But, you know, if you're optimistic, I have a good friend of mine out here.
You don't have a favorite player or anything?
Gosh, I mean, not really. I just love the NFL. I love football, but I don't have a team that I'm like, I fully root for. My best friend's from Baltimore. He grew up there. Then he moved to Memphis as a kid. So he's a big Ravens fan, and Lamar's awesome. So
yep.
I want the Ravens to win because of my friend. I grew up in Memphis, obviously, so I don't love the Titans because I think of them as Nashville's team. That's just how I am mentally. So I don't really have an NFL team. I just love watching the sport, playing fantasy, and I just love sports. That's just me. But you know, we got to get a little NFL in because Roman can talk about the Steelers for like an hour and a half. So you know, he'll talk about the Steelers.
Our teams might be essentially doing a quarterback swap this year. We'll see.
Very true. That's very true. Well, look, man. Again, thank you so much for being on the show. To everybody who tuned in to Tigers Live, to everybody in the comment section, thank you all so much for always supporting the show and being as active as y'all have always been throughout this time on Tigers Live. If you're on Twitter, be sure to move to YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe to Bluff City Media, hit the bell to turn on the notification alerts so you see every single time a new episode of some of the amazing shows that Bluff City Media puts out. And as soon as they get released, you'll know if you turn that bell on. You can find me on Twitter at Slugger Sports, at SLUGGA Sports. Baseball's starting to ramp up, so I'm going to talk about. I'm a Padres guy, so I'm a Padres guy. So you'll see that on your timeline a little bit. But you know, I'm Memphis hoops through and through. So definitely follow me on there as well. Subscribe to Bluff City Media. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Oh, before I get out of here, to everybody who is tuning in, tomorrow will be a normal show after same post game show after the game. Roman will be on. Kenny Stubblefield will be on after that. And then Sunday, no show right after the game. I want to make that very clear. We'll talk about it again tomorrow. No Tigers Live after the game, like right away. We'll have a show after Selection Sunday gets finished up, where we know exactly where the Tigers are seated, who they're playing in the first round, and their path to, hopefully, a national championship come March Madness, come that NCAA tournament. So we'll do a show after the Selection Sunday show, after all that gets released. I don't know the time of that yet, everybody, but as soon as Kenny lets me know, we'll talk about on the show tomorrow. So that's all I got. We'll see y'all tomorrow after they face the winner of FAU Tulane. But until next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Tigers Live. If you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. For comprehensive coverage of all things Memphis sports, head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co and find out how you can become an insider. We will see you back here next time.